Uh, I would also request you to, because I know you already switched off your camera, and we will have the question and answer session at the end. We'll try to keep it around 10 to 15 minutes, and you can unmute yourself at that time and then ask questions. This is already being recorded, and this recording will also be available for you on the community platform. In case if you want to share this with your friends or colleagues or within the company or even externally as well, it will be available on the platform and they could have a look at it and refer it. This session will be a bit interactive in the sense we would also be going through the sections in a way that you could share your opinions, you could ask questions, etc. Points planned to be touched. We are going to compare the firm with living creatures in terms of their survival and expansion modes. We are going to touch upon the firm growth towards agility. How do we measure firm growth through time periods? That is key performance indicators. What are the different types of growth-inducing factors? Technological, multidimensional, which includes data analytics, etc. Reskilling and upscaling. And how do we include or cater for environmental impact and sustainability factors? So that these are the pressing factors, not only for the companies, but for the whole earth. And how do we take this into consideration when we are thinking about the growth within the company and in the industry? What the flow of presentation would be, why is there a need to change? We'll try to answer, when we are all doing good, why should we change? When our companies are perfectly fine, best oriented, customers are happy, why is there a need to change? Then let's answer that question, and then let's go to where should we change then, if at all we have to change. The third one would be, when should we be changing? Is it the right time? Should we wait for something to happen internally, externally, etc.? And the last one would be, how should we change? How should we adopt to change? And if at all we are changing, how do we measure it? Right? Let's start with the first one. Why is there a need to change? You have a look at the single-celled organism on the right-hand side, and you see it moving, right? What do we observe here? It's basically a single-celled animal called amoeba, which tries to catch food and then tries to survive like any other organism. It has got extending finger-like projections called protoplasms. And I don't know much about this organism, but what interests me is that how can we relate this kind of a phenomena for the company? Why can't an organism, which is such a small one, single-celled, stay at a particular place, at a single place, and keep eating the food what it gets? Why it has to move? Is it in a survival mode? That is it looking at threats that somebody else will be, some other predator would eat it? Or is it in expansion mode that it wants to grow? It wants to look for more opportunities. So if we compare such living creatures with companies, each company or a living creature, it has a start. There's a birth, and then they tend to grow in multiple dimensions. They learn multiple things, and based on the imbibed learnings with the environment, internally, externally, strengths get developed. And this is a constant phenomena which keeps happening, knowingly, unknowingly. And then based on those strengths, weaknesses, the plans of survival, the strategies of existence emerge. They face threats from competitors, all animals, even companies. There's a different changing business landscape every day. Someday rains, someday sunshine, someday extreme conditions. And with VUCA conditions happening, affecting the businesses, and it is also research says that the VUCA conditions are going to increase at a much faster rate. The effect on the company also going to increase. So how at all they should be surviving and also growing in that kind of a scenario, which is going to emerge, which is already emerging, we see. So there's always a constant evolution which happens. And as I said, it is intended sometimes, that is want to change, and unintended, that is forced to change. So to thrive or even survive, companies therefore cannot afford to be constant. they cannot afford to be constant, meaning that they have to change. If they keep stand still at a particular place, they may be forced to change because of multiple factors. And therefore, where to change, how to change becomes more important, so that it becomes advantageous and not kind of a forced factor upon the company, which may not be advantageous. So change is inevitable, as we discussed, but growth is optional. And therefore, when we think about this very important aspect about the scenario in this condition, the most important part would be how do we thrive or survive in this situation? Because change is going to be inevitable and growth is optional. Therefore, adoption is the only mantra to this. That is, how do we adopt to change, perceive what's going to happen, though we can't, completely predict what's going to happen, but based on the historical factors, considering some VUCA factors happening, using pestle analysis for growth, we could try to think about what could affect our business and thereby try to move in a direction which is most suitable for us, where we can grow our companies and also not only thrive, not only survive, but thrive. So being agile is most important in that condition. How do we, if at all, if we are not agile, then we can't move fast. And if we cannot move fast, then the factors are so effective that the businesses will be lost, because it's very difficult to maintain heavy non-lean companies because of all the different overheads which keep acting on them continuously. And therefore, it's difficult in the sense that change, to bring in change, to adopt to change would be extremely challenging. So companies, do they have a choice to make? Let's see. Mahatma Gandhi, he mentioned that adaptability is not imitation. It means power of resistance and assimilation. Most of the times, what we see in companies is, especially SMEs, is that they try to compare themselves with somebody bigger in their own industry in the region or even globally. With the advent of internet and connectivity increase, they would all easily get to know what the other company might be doing, because you have suppliers, you have your customers, etc. So you know generally, okay, this company is adopted to an ERP, this company is adopted to an SAP solution. They are imbibing Power BI based data analytics. They are going for IoT, etc. But the companies who actually align themselves not by copying, but by thinking about what is their DNA, what is their strength, and what is it that they should be adopting, would only be succeeding. If they just copy, then it becomes an overhead. As a consultant, I have worked with a couple of companies who had good cash flow, and they decided at a particular time that they should also purchase some ERP solution because the market leader in the region had purchased. This was a public listed company. Surprisingly, they were not able to move with that. Now, our project there was for rationalization of manpower, both blue collar and white collar. Now, what we were about to discuss there was that if at all a new software which is purchased to reduce the time taken for the business process management has been adopted to, then why still are we having three personnel to maintain three different systems for the same activity? The activity was, how do we monitor the in of stores? How do we monitor the out of stores? And how do we monitor the inventory? So they had a register which the people old traditional practices were following. They also were following Excel. Then came ERP, and then there is also SAP. So there are four different versions of truth. And so when management asked why production is not getting something, these four different versions of truth were compared, and thereby they were never tallying. And we were in a fix there because we were not able to find out which was the one which management wanted, because they always said SAP is not the one of the softwares, or the ERP or something is, or Excel was not complete. And therefore it is very important that the companies should not just copy the market leaders as well, but to assemble, to understand what best suits them and align that with their business strategy. Going ahead. So I'll try to end this session on why, because we have now understood that there is a need to change because it's inevitable. But how do we maneuver this change towards growth is possible. Famous Charles Darwin, he mentioned that it is not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change survive. So you see, this is again an interesting thing. To be responsive, we have to be agile. To be agile, we'll have to be extremely lean in terms of our operations, extremely simple in terms of our outputs. And therefore, with that, let's head on to the next topic of where should we then focus to change within our companies. We know Porter's 5 forces. These keep acting on the company. For example, the first one is bargaining power of suppliers. Each company, be it service-oriented or a product-oriented, always have suppliers. Now, these suppliers are not only supplying us as a company, but also to other companies in the same industry. And therefore, they know what's happening in a bigger scale, in a larger scale, and they could actually have a big bargaining power on on companies, especially on SMEs, because SMEs are having dearth of cash. They are looking for funding. On the other hand, the well-established companies have funds. So but the suppliers who are established, they try to go more towards the established companies because they want their cash flow fixed, non-risked, etc. The other pulling factor for the company, especially for SMEs, would be the buyers, the customers. Customers, with the advent of internet, online shopping, with you could say AI, they have become extremely intelligent and informed in terms of what they want, when they want, how they want, how they need to be serviced. So it's very, very important to understand what they need. And therefore, we have this marketing and sales and different teams. And it's very important, especially in this advent of internet flow in terms of in the hands of people. It's very important to know what our customer wants before they know about it. And that's a factor which is to be given prime importance of. The third one is competitive rivalry. Each day, if the market or the business is having attractive value propositions with lesser, you could say, effort and more margins, automatically you could see multiple competitors entering there. Or those who are already there, they would try to change their business model to also adopt to this new thing where they see there's a lot of business existing. We also have threat of new entrants. So these are forces which keep acting on the company. You remember there were different kinds of you could say kind of tentacles or projections which the amoeba had. Why it had those? Because at some places there was a pull of these forces when I'm comparing that to the company, and at some places there was a push where it had to shrink. There is a threat of new entrants as well. People, nowadays with the liberalization, there is a good opportunity for any business to be started anywhere, and therefore there is always a threat of new entrants. And there is a threat of substitutes. We all know the story of camera, how Nokia phones camera overtook the actual camera sales. And we also know that was a substitute for camera, but later on the whole the business model of a camera is turned upside down. So with these things in the mind, these are just 5 forces we are talking about. We have got compliance risks, which governments will keep inducing, which we have got opportunity risks in terms of funding, networking, knowledge, skills, etc. And we have got attrition on top of it. All these are factors. How do we manage our business in such daily changing game, minute by minute changing game, is what we have to think about. And these are things which are external, sometimes internal, in the sense that managing people, managing our own assets, etc. So that's very important to be borne in mind about these forces so that we could actually see where to change. Another factor is sometimes it becomes very important for companies to actually start thinking about what is the meaning of growth for the business. Is it increase in top line, that is revenues or sales? Is it revenue from international sales because companies want to go abroad, make more margins, etc., or set their footprint there, greenfield, brownfield projects? Is it increase in bottom line or profits, or is it in cash flow increase? or is it increase in assets? You can see companies around your own ecosystem and your own company as well. The definition of growth is completely different for each company. Is it more number of orders or expanded customer base? And for the same company, these definitions of growth changes. Why we are discussing this? Because the companies at that particular stage of their journey in the business would have different definition as growth. And based on that definition, they start looking at opportunities and threats. And that's where they would start looking at how to grow, where to grow, etc. Is it enhanced brand recognition? Is it repeat customers? Is it employee engagement, awards, number of factories, overseas expansion, and shareholder value? So it depends. Today in India, we lost Sri Ratan Tata. Now I'm giving this example because he was a visionary. He, set up multiple businesses. He took on his as a business from Tata Sons. He took on the journey and he expanded across. Why we are looking at this company today is we want to see what was the meaning of growth for them. He states, your competition is not other people, but the time you kill, the ill you create, the knowledge you neglect to learn, the connections you fail to build, the health you sacrifice along the path, your inability to generate ideas, the people around you who don't support you, and the love your efforts, and whatever God you curse for your bad luck. So it emphasizes on the true competition, which doesn't lie externally, but it lies internally. It also emphasizes on influences which support the growth or which hinder the growth. Why is it so? This business is so and himself is so popular is because he expanded. He had acquired multiple global brands, including the iconic Jaguar and Land Rover. And if you could go through the stories of this business, how it emerged, it had got multiple obstacles, but still with persistence, with continuous focus, not only on the company, but also on their stakeholders, including the competitors. They were able to achieve such success. This was the most affordable car which they launched. So what was growth for them? Was it sales? Actually not. There is a story behind all of these brands. Whenever you get a chance, you could actually go through. This car emerged because the visionary which I just showed you, he saw a couple with a kid going on a bike. And he felt that if they fall, then the whole family would be get affected. Why can't we create a car which is most affordable within a short or bit expensive range compared to a bike? And they were able to do it. The car costed 1,000 euros. And that was the most affordable car then. It was launched in year 2009. And the next version of the car, which is in electrical version, which is just coming up soon. So going back to what was his vision and when people were asking him questions for what does he think the business is, the only answer he gave was businesses need to go beyond the interest of their companies, not sales, not profits, not cash flow, not those numbers, but it is the communities they serve. And this I liked as a part of it because the business is a part of ecosystem where people contribute, they add value, but that ecosystem exists in the ecosystem of people living their daily lives. So it's a very nice kind of a scenario for which the suggestion of growth depends on the way the companies look at it, the visionaries look at it. So again, coming back to our definition, our way of adopting to things, how do we define now what is growth for us? Most of the SMEs would be looking at growth as increased sales because the only pinnacle for them, the most part of their day goes to bring in more sales, because the more sales we feel is more profit, which is true. And the more the profit, more the sustainability in the sense, in terms of existence, I'm talking about for the business, and to hire more people to then grow as well. However, as the growth happens, there are multiple stages. So we will have to keep defining and keep looking at what is the growth for the company, because once we have this, then we would be able to move on a bit faster in terms of where to grow. What are the different growth influencers then? The directions of decisions is always influenced and prioritized by vision of the company. So each day, at each point of time, you could have observed at different hierarchies as well, even in the daily meetings, in the weekly meetings, in the board meetings as well, the decisions which are taken have got different priorities. And that again comes back to the definition of what is the growth for the company, the vision for the company. So SMEs have to set up a vision statement for themselves, a vision statement which defines what is the purpose of their business. What is it that the business wants to be seeing happening around them? They could include environmental impact, sustainability aspects, which are non-negotiable. For example, from the day one, you could look at all the factors in the operational areas where there is no waste of water, electricity, etc., etc. It is also very important that the work is simple so that the people who come in, they enjoy their work. It's also important that the work is decentralized so that the decision making at all levels in the organization follow the same angle of vision. They all talk the same language of what the company wants to achieve. And this is the difference you could see in most of the companies. And it's very important from the day one when the company starts its operations to actually focus on these. Why I could relate to this is because I ran my own company for 6 years. And as a consultant, I've seen multiple companies across different geographies. So when you go for a company and when you just visit them, speak to them, when you attend their morning meetings, you could get to know where the decisions are flowing. Is it firefighting or is it towards some particular goal? And therefore, we strongly recommend to SMEs that they set their vision statement very clearly so that any new joinee who joins, he correlates to that vision statement from the day one. And any person who leaves the company carries that vision that, oh, this company relates to this. They're very particular about environmental stabilities, impact, etc., etc. And that creates the brand. This helps in making of a strong brand association. And the action of implementation is the company's mission. How do they, achieve that vision is the mission. So that mission statement is your day-to-day activity of how do we achieve that? Is it in the form of daily review meetings, in the form of KPIs we set, etc. We'll touch upon this in the next upcoming slides. Some of us might have seen this BCG matrix. It's a consulting company which is in top 4 across the world, and they have come up with this matrix where a company to decide on where to grow could get a clue from this matrix. What we see is on the left-hand side, the y-axis, we see that the market growth rate. Let's assume that we have got some products, a set of products, and we could place them on the axis of market growth rate versus market share. Suppose our products are having huge market share, but the growth rate is found to be slow. Then we should be looking at making or keeping them at low margins called cash cows. Suppose the growth rate, if we have got higher market share and the growth rate is slow, that is called cash cows. If we have got low market share and the growth rate is less, then they are considered to be dogs because they're going to be going out soon because we are losing our market share because there might be other competitors who might have introduced at a lower price, etc., or more value, and also the growth rate is reduced. The third most important part, which unknowingly or knowingly sometimes the SMEs focus on and all companies focus on, is stars. So always you see in any company, the company is focusing on developing something new. It could be adding value to what is existing a bit, or it could be coming up with something extremely innovative, very different as a value proposition to customers. Sometimes the star product which the company feels is star for them, but may not be star for others. And they might be a failure for those products. So it's very important to gauge the acceptance in the market. So if the product becomes star, where the market share is extremely high and the growth rate projected is also extremely high, then you could actually keep that as the focus for your growth. And you could actually look at pricing that at a higher margin because over a period of time, when other competitors enter, you have the first mover advantage and you could get these star products into cash cows where you still keep earning higher margins because your volumes would have increased. For example, you could see the best of the bicycle brands across the world, because I am correlating to this because I had to run around for finding the best bicycle for my younger one and recently, and therefore what I could correlate was the bicycles which we rode and how those companies have changed over a period of time. Not only the look and feel, the brand, but also with respect to the products which they are offering. The one which were non-geared have moved to geared, the one which were geared have moved to electrical bicycles, and the one which were electrical have moved to multiple dimensions of offerings. So always there are star products. So whenever you see on a particular company's website, if it is having online sales, you could observe this. Sometimes just to not make people aware of the brand for selling it at a lower price or a higher price, they create different brands by showing only the value of it, of what the customer is going to get, and price it at a higher rate. So this is where we will have to and it's an easy exercise for the companies, if you have got multiple products, for you to actually have a look at it, sit down, and then see which part or which product is star for us or could be star for us by adding a bit of value on the existing cash cow products. Where can we make more margins, etc. And this will lead us to identify where can we grow. Now, let's come to the third topic, that is when should be changing. We should measure our efforts, right? Is there a right time to change? No, because we know that the change is continuous. Why? Because our customers will keep asking, will keep demanding multiple things. Our suppliers will keep telling us that, no, the trend is changed, you have to purchase this one. Recently, I would like to quote an example here. I was consulting a large hotel chain in Ireland, and there I could see a very dynamic aspect of this part, where every day the customers are changing, their demands are changing, and the employees, the front face of the company are changing. It's a 4-star hotel. So how do you manage your expectations, both in terms of the training part, because you cannot keep training because you lose the employee cost is high, and on the other hand, how do you meet the demands without being rude with the customers, but still ensuring that they come back to your own brand of hotels. So it is possible in a way that we start measuring in the form of what we do every day, so that we can align that with our mission, so that further gets aligned to our vision. These are called KPIs. We all know, key performance indicators. And every company, as it develops, the KPIs keep getting added. None of them, I mean, I've seen very less companies where they keep reducing some KPIs. They say, okay, this will add to that, so let's take this out. So they want that also, they want this also. Try to have minimum set of KPIs which give you the whole story on a daily basis, in a real-time basis. If you are able to set it up now at this stage of the SME, then it will be very beneficial for you as you progress. Some KPIs could be daily, some KPIs could be weekly reviewed, etc. How do we define KPIs? It should be a top-down approach, and periodic feedback should be sought from bottom up, from the workers, because they know the actual story on the ground, Gemba, and they would actually help us to understand this. But the flow should be smooth. What we also seen in SMEs, as they mushroom, as the companies grow, the flow of information from the top management to the lower management and vice versa takes a lot of time. It has to be, and then slowly the bureaucracy is getting built. They get built up. There is a virtual wall which get built up between different departments. Discussions, though they happen, they are not very productive. It becomes more of a pinpointing game on a daily basis rather than team game in terms of achieving and succeeding in the market. So in those kind of scenarios, the most important part would be, how do we make the KPIs and the information flow extremely smooth in the organization? That should also be a focus, because when we have decided where to change, this is a factor which has to be considered. For this, the system should be designed such that the flow of information and the feedback is smooth and quick. Least administration effort should be required to achieve the same. Focus to minimize the efforts is important. Why smooth and quick flow is expected? Because we see results. For example, the actions follow results and results are again following through decisions. So this is a continuous flow. In every meeting, if we correlate ourselves attending a daily meeting, why do we have meetings? Not only to understand the story about what's happening, but also to take some decisions, to seek some support or to provide some support. So when we decide, on what basis do we decide? Okay, we can say KPIs. The faster we are able to take decisions, the more productive the meeting is, that lead to actions. The faster the actions, the faster the results. I'm not remembering a famous one of the famous writers. He suggested that fail fast. What does that mean? That take actions faster, take calculated risks, so that when we fail fast, we know where to actually succeed. Okay, so for that, if the information is clear and crisp, sharing and the decisions will be, and if at all it is not in a clear and crisp, let's say in that way, then the sharing of the information becomes slower. Stories will start emerging in the daily meetings, and the decisions will be very slow, and therefore the actions will be very slow. It lead to stagnancy. So it'll start telling, okay, that's okay, this is okay, and you could easily make this out if you are attending a meeting and you could see the decision makers face, the top CEO or MD. I'm talking about a daily morning meeting with HODs. If they are not able to take a single decision on that day, that means the meeting is extremely unproductive. If in the meeting, the HODs say, okay, just a moment, I'll try to get that data, then that meeting is unproductive. It should be there for decisions. So that's where how do you design the KPIs comes into effect. So try to observe your meetings, try to make them simpler, try to make them less story oriented, try to cut the stories, and you'll start seeing the change very soon in your organization. Right. So if at all that's not there, then companies will go into survival mode, not thrive mode. This is important to be observed in the companies, called tipping point and inflection points in business. So what's tipping point? When we see that there's a lot of hard work put to get a particular product to be moved from the design stage to experiment stage to actual launch stage, sometimes you see that its adaptation is extremely quick in the market. So because you've done all the research part, the market acceptance studies, etc., and sometimes it's very quick. Sometimes it's also luck oriented in the sense that the market needed it and you had the product then and there. For example, the platform what we have, we are going through Zoom, and then the Zoom came into effect when COVID happened. So it was kind of a smooth ride for them. But we have to keep thinking about these tipping points for our own businesses. What are the tipping points where we could start moving our star products or the products where we had kept higher margins to start capturing the market as soon as possible? And we can keep our products at a lesser margin, but still by increased volume, the overall volume of the margin increases. But increased in the sense, what I mean to say is increased quantities. So overall volume of margin increases. Let's think about the inflection point. What is inflection point? It's generally called strategic inflection point or SIP. When a company has tried with a particular idea, they have launched, their sales are increasing. Over a period of time, they see that the sales, though they are increasing, but not increasing at a particular rate which is expected. How do we compare? We can compare that with inflation. We can compare that with the employee costs. There is an increase, but it's not as high as expected. For example, nowadays, diesel car sales in some geographies, people are anticipating that should we go for diesel cars, because in some regions they're already banned. They're going to ban. They've already announced that diesel cars will be banned after a particular year. So in all these scenarios, at that strategic inflection point, what the company should do, that decision becomes very important. Some companies, if they don't decide at that time, they would start going down in terms that their sales would start going down. Sometimes the companies would have to close because they didn't decide at that particular time. And please look at this point. This point is not at this. I'm not sure if you are able to see my cursor moving. This point is not when the sales have started going down. This is the point which you will have to observe when the sales are still high, they are going up, but not at the rate at which you expected. So this is a point also to be taken into account, where you will have to start thinking about, if at all, if I can add some value to it, can my sales increase and go back to its expected rate of increase in sales? Or can I add some value onto my existing product to make it star product? Something like that. And therefore, that could become a different brand as well. So these 2 points, the tipping point and inflection point, are important for the business to actually focus on when and how to change. Going ahead. Now let's go to the last topic, that is how to change. How do we adopt to change? And what are the factors which we have with ourselves? What are the resources which we could use? Most important part would be organization structure as well, and clear definition of roles. How to change? We have identified that change is important. We have to change. Now we have to start looking at opportunities to keep our organization agile, but keep evolving on a day-to-day basis. Keep having 2 sets of mindsets or the operations working, and both should be strong. One is sustaining cash cows, because this has to happen. How to simplify these cash cows, how to simplify what we are doing on a daily basis, and also a same or similar amount of focus on the star products, generating or creating star products, so that you can try introduce that into market and see whether it is applicable or not, whether it's accepted or not. So importance of organization structure and clear definition of roles. As a human body, we should have sharp eyes and ears that sense risks. And similarly, as an organization, as a company, we should have such sensors to identify the risks and the opportunities. For example, new entrants coming to the market, supplier monopolies, hike in operational costs, what are the opportunities, etc. What are the new tenders opening up? What are the new geographies opening up? Why are we including all this in these webinars is to give insight to all you SMEs that in transit, the platform what we are in now and this project has an opportunity wherein you can apply for funding. And all these topics of webinars would support you in identifying those areas which are innovative in the sectors what you already know, that is textile, construction, advanced manufacturing, and aerospace, so that you could identify those opportunities and apply for the develop call. You could partner with companies and thereby do the projects which are innovative, and you could get funded. And therefore, these webinars are very important for you to actually look internally that what best we could do and where best we could do, and for how and when you could actually think, and then think about those ideas, apply for the develop call, and then look at the chance of getting funded. And I should say that it's going to be competitive like the last time. So we should apply. The company organization structure should have a quick reflex to maintain with less, that is lean concept, and to experiment with more. This is very important. How do we, as I said, how do we maintain with less and experiment with more so that we keep growing over a period of time? How do we plan our activities? We plan daily, daily plan versus actual should be reviewed in the form of DMS, that is daily management system. Daily management system is a very simple system of review, wherein we go through about what we had planned versus what we achieved. And the same thing could actually start extrapolating for the weekly and the monthly plans. It's also important to log the reasons. Most companies don't do this. I was working on a project for almost 12 weeks, 1 day per week, in a company where we set up dashboards. So the most important part is we know that we are performing or we are not performing. There are reds and greens. But what we have to focus now, and the company has realized it, is that whenever we are not performing, that is one of the key KPIs for them was OTIF, on time in full deliveries. So we have to write down the reasons, their exact reasons. Was it internal? Was it externals? Externals meaning spare was not available or something like that, so that they could actually attack on them and then try to reduce the reasons and support merit, and automatically you will see the culture improving. So key performance indicators could be internal and external. Internal could be operational. They are important to have them correlated. For example, electricity consumption versus ambient air temperature, etc. It should be very easy to capture the data. With sensors, most important is you should also have a look at what is their tolerance range, what is their maintenance requirements. With manual, you should also be looking at their errors capturing, and it should have an automatic real-time analysis. Reports and dashboards nowadays, most of them are online and open source, so it could be very easy to set up. And the minimum time should be spent on creating the slide deck. We have observed that most of the companies, as they grow, the HODs spend at least last 2-3 days only creating monthly review meeting slides, which is absolutely non-value adding. If there is a single version of truth that is in your data, which is to be captured at one place, and based on that, you can play around with the data the way you want to actually analyze and get insights out of it. What are the external factors and KPIs? Tenders or order pipelines, conferences to attend, partnerships, networkings, etc., so that the business part would also grow. This is just an addition. You might be knowing about this, the leading indicator and lagging indicators. The leading indicator is something where it's an indicator of performance that might predict the future success. For example, user guide usage, calories per day. This is the leading indicator. What is the lagging indicator? An indicator of the past performance. Just to give an example, for say our kids are studying for exams. What is the leading indicator? What are the number of hours they put in the study? What do they study? How they plan their studies, etc. What is the lagging indicator? What are the results? Similarly for sales, if we talk about what is the availability of our product, what is the lead time of delivery, what is the spread of availability of what is our market share, all these are leading indicators. What are sales is our lagging indicator. And unfortunately, we always start looking at lagging indicators, but not at leading indicators. If you are able to measure and put in the KPIs within your own organization, which are focusing on leading indicators, then automatically lagging indicators will be taken care of themselves. This is the change bathtub curve. As we know, change is inevitable now. Growth also is in our hands. If we start looking at change as a factor of growth, factor for growth, this is a change, bathtub curve. It's what it's called. So every time you want to induce a change, people don't want to change from their traditional methods. They want to keep sticking to it because that has worked. They have put in effort to come to the speed at which they are now. And when the moment you want them to change, there is a huge amount of denial initially. They might look at you that you are not experienced, or they might look at you that we are here since last 30 years, especially in consulting, this happens. They might look at you with anger, and there would be less acceptance of what you introduced. There would be bargaining as well. They might suggest something that, okay, let's do it this way. And is it possible? How do we handle this part of the change curve is most important, because as time passes, every change goes through these. Sometimes it might lead to depression as well, because the old employees might not leave. Sometimes they might leave as well. And you will start thinking whether what we are doing is right or wrong. But over a period of time, you'll start seeing acceptance, provided it's simplifying their process and not complicating. And once that acceptance starts, without you wanting it to happen, you will see multiple positive side effects of the change which you just suggested, and it automatically happened. You'll be surprised to actually see this, and we have seen this in multiple projects. Just ensure when you are implementing any change, you have a baseline. Baseline is basically you should set up a key performance indicator about a measure which will help you analyze it, and also focus on your indicators which are leading and not lagging, because lagging will take care of themselves if we have properly defined leading indicators. So to summarize, I'll just add on that it is important to review the KPIs periodically to keep operations lean and agile and responsive, not keep building on one top, the processes or systems on a top of each other, so that they are kind of, it should be mutually, we call it as MESE, mutually exclusive, and they should be exhaustive as well, collectively exhaustive, mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, so that there is no overlap, but still you are able to see the whole bird's eye view of your company. Seek help from experts. Experts here, I would say industry clusters where you are there, because there's a great amount of ecosystem which is existing in European region, wherein the industry clusters could help you with multiple ideas Also, there are projects where you could get not only funding, but support from experts to implement these change at your place in a very short period of time, because they have such experience implementing this in other areas. You have your organization structure designed for eyes and ears, that is quick to collate external influencing factors, hands and legs in terms of quickly to respond to the decisions, and nervous system to smooth, which is smooth and quick information flow for informed decision making. Focus on simplifying routine stuff so that they can take care of your cash cows, and keep your eyes and ears open for where, how, when, and most importantly, why should we change, so that we can focus on those and prioritize on those aspects of products, improvement, or process improvement, or service improvement, so that we always are seen by our customers that this is a company which is always taking care of us. It's always giving added value to us, and therefore it's always growing. With that, thank you so much for your kind attention. I open the forum for questions or queries, etc. Thank you. Any questions you have, can kindly put them in the chat box. Or if you want to, discuss any of you could unmute your microphone, and you could ask questions, or if you want to discuss any particular challenge, operational challenge you're facing in your company, you could share with us. If you want to also discuss about some areas what we touched upon today in terms of organizational growth, in terms of the 5 factors which affect your company, and if you want to seek some help in those regards, you could raise. You could also put in a chat box about what was it that was most interesting in today's discussion. That will also be helpful for us to develop upon as a feedback. Though you'll be getting a different feedback questionnaire later on as well. As I said, it would be a bit of interactive kind of thing. So I would suggest that if at all you have any kind of questions, discussions, we have some time, around 6 minutes. We could discuss.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Pablo from Indresmat.
Hello, Pablo. Please tell me.
I like a lot the approach of Tata with the car. Yeah.
Yeah.
To make accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of way that we should do business.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So
you're right.
It's really inspiring.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring.
True.
We more or less are having the same approach.
Yeah.
Very high performance, but at the most accessible price. So
Yeah.
I like this.
Great. In fact, the interesting part, was that as expected, the sales of the cars didn't increase so much, because the value proposition in terms of customers' minds was it was most affordable car. And so what happened was people started thinking, okay, why should I buy the most affordable car? Can I buy something a bit expensive so that other people will not see me as a, uh, I am buying a least expensive car. The people who actually bought the car were not the one who were poor. The people who bought the car were the one who wanted to try with it, who wanted to, kind of use it and see it how it was. So that was a complete, it again adds on to our discussion today about firm growth and upscaling, the positioning of the brand as well. And therefore, the company now is switching over to the most affordable electric vehicle kind of a thing, because the design is there with small changes as per the requirements of the electric propulsion, electric motor drive. This small change in the design, I think maybe this car would be able to generate more sales as expected at the lower part of the pyramid, at the most affordable the way it was actually launched. Thanks, Pablo,
Yeah.
for sharing
Thanks
your.
to you.
Great. Great. We have got 3 to 4 more minutes in case if you want to add on to this discussion. What I know as a consultant is it's very quiet at the top. The top, what I mean is at your levels where you are MDs or CEOs, because it's only you and your own self. You've got so many questions internally that you keep answering on a day-to-day basis. You keep looking around on internet or seek some help. Such forums would be a good opportunity to express some learnings, to ask questions. There are no questions which are considered to be non-intelligent. So it's an open forum. So I think it's a good opportunity as well for networking, because through in-transit community platform you could also log in and then matchmake, share your business processes, share your business experiences. You could also seek meetings with the people on the platform. Great. You've got last 2 minutes. This webinar will also be available on the platform in case if you want to have a look at it, or you could also leave them after the chat, after the meeting is over. If at all you have some queries, please do type them in the chat box, and we will be able to get back to you through your emails, because you would have already registered through at the beginning of the webinar. Okay. Great. I think with no questions, I think it's time to say thank you all for kind attendance with this webinar. Hope it gave you some insights, opened up some parts of your minds to look internally of where, why, how, when to change. How can we align that to the firm growth and keep growing and keep the acceleration pedal of the business pressed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Very interesting session. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.